What's going on, y'all? Today we got Jordan couldn't survive today's NBA. Jason Williams exposed. Yeah, what's wrong with this guy? I ain't gonna lie, Jason
Over the
Williams, you
past
crazy,
year,
bro.
we've seen some
You
crazy
crazy.
takes from former NBA players.
I'm seeing a
talking
lot of
about
these,
Giannis, Steph Curry,
a
Jokic,
lot of these like
even Luka Doncic.
newer
But in today's
NBA
video,
analysts
I have found the
disrespect
holy grail of bad
the
former
players that
player
came
takes.
before them, man.
As Jason Williams,
Shit is
yes,
crazy.
that Jason Williams went
Like,
off on Michael Jordan,
it's
the
crazy.
greatest player in NBA
Disrespectful.
history.
I think
I know why they doing it too. I feel like they're doing it just for views, man. They're doing it for the whatchamacallit.
you could
You
put
know?
Michael Jordan on a team when he's in his prime and they get to the playoffs.
No, I'm talking about players now. I'm talking about with the rules
is on
back
player
then. You
stories,
put
too.
Michael Jordan on a team now with these rules, he ain't getting to the playoffs.
With these rules now.
That Joker can't hit sand if he fell off a camel, bro.
So definitely pretty spicy off the bat, as Jason Williams says Michael Jordan today's NBA couldn't make the playoffs due to his lack of jump shot. He can have that take, but looking at the actual data, it's far from the truth. As looking at prime MJ in the playoffs, from 86-93, he shot exactly 36% from behind the line. In 93, he shot 38.9% on nearly 4 attempts, 92, 38.6% on exactly 2 attempts, and 91, 38.5% on 1.5 attempts. Looking at those 3 championship runs collectively, Jordan in those runs shot 38.7% from behind the line. And I find this take from Jason really odd because looking at modern day players, there's tons of guys who aren't great 3-point shooters or are still very effective and superstar guys. Like DeMar DeRozan, who shoots 35.2%, Tatum 35.3%, Mitchell 35.5%,
Bring him
Durant
Brown.
34.4%, James Harden 33%, Jaylen Brown 35.8%, Anthony Edwards 35.7%, and Luka Doncic 35.3%.
Braun can't
right
shoot.
there.
What LeBron is shooting on the year? What is LeBron shooting on the year for 3-point line? Like 30, 31? Something like that, 32. Maybe I'm wrong. But bro, you see what Braun doing? You don't need a jumper. You don't need a jumper, man. You don't need too much of a jumper, man.
Players who aren't
Especially when you're
shooters.
Michael Jordan level
And
at getting to the basket, acrobatic
all those guys'
finishes.
teams
You
made
know,
the playoffs last year.
the agility. Come on, man.
And
Stop.
going one step further, looking at last year's leading scorers, among the top 25, 17 of those guys shot under 36% from 3, 10 of them under 35%, and 8 of them under 34%. Once again proving, even in the modern game, you can be a great superstar player
that's a
with an
fact.
average or below average 3-point shot. And once again, looking at Michael Jordan, in 13 years in Chicago, not once did he miss the postseason. And very early in his career, he was carrying some really bad Bulls teams. Look at 1988 and MJ's team. That year, Chicago won 50 games and were the 4th seed in the East. MJ's 5 best teammates were Sam Vincent, Dave Corzine, Charles Oakley, Brad Sellers, and John Paxson. No all-star teammates or superstar teammates, no stacked super team. Really, it was a team full of role players. And Jordan individually averaged 35 points that year, the most in the NBA, was a steals leader, MVP, defensive player of the year, and played 40.4 minutes per game, the most in the NBA. If Jordan in '88 can make the playoffs with that team, why couldn't he do that in 2022? Especially now that there's 10 teams who qualify for the playoffs, with 4 of them being in the play-in tournament. I mean, looking at last year, we had the Brooklyn Nets, who were missing 2 superstars for at least 30 games each. That team still went 44-38. And looking at the Western Conference, you had Paul George missing 31 games for the Clippers and Kawhi being out the entire season. Even with that being said, they went 42-40 and had the 8th best record in the Western Conference. The overall data, the facts, and just the context are not on Jason Williams' side.
The illegal defense situation back when MJ played, man, when he had that ball on the wing, all he had to worry about was the primary defender. He not even worry about the primary defender because they had no chance.
Oh my
The
God.
secondary, he was looking for where the help's coming from. And back then, the help had to come from the weak side block. Well, now you put LeBron out there on the wing. He got a guy at the block, ball side block, got a guy at the ball side elbow, and the primary defender.
This right here is one of the biggest myths and false narratives about the 1990s. That it was just 1v1 basketball, there was no zones, no traps, and not even double teams. If you were a novice to basketball and you hopped on YouTube,
Bro, didn't they install the 3-second rule in like 2002 or something? And Jason Williams got like, isn't that when Jason Williams fake got into the league or some shit like that? But besides that, my point is, this center could literally just stand in the paint the whole time. So it's like, bro, if Mike could go crazy against that, no 3-second rule. I mean, now they got a 3-second rule. You know what I'm saying? As soon as they got out the paint, I said, Mike gonna hit that drive. You know, Mike is a real intelligent fellow. Like, he
you
uses
yourself could prove
bro,
this wrong. Watch the full games. Watch
just
the
uses the
last
defense.
dance, highlights,
what they do
and
against
you
them, man. I'm telling you.
100% false.
One of my supporters made me
Now, the
notice
one
it
thing I will
in
say,
the comments.
in the 90s, there was a rule called illegal defense.
He runs towards
which in
doubles.
theory
all that.
eliminated the zone. But watching the film, doing the research, illegal defense was rarely, if ever, called. Looking at some of the best defensive teams in the 90s, like the Pistons and Knicks, they would always double team Jordan, show help, play zone, even a box and one. And later on in the decade, you had Orlando, Seattle, and really any decent defensive team sending doubles, having multiple guys watching Jordan, and playing a pseudo zone. And looking at Bulls coach Phil Jackson, when he was an actual player with the Knicks,
Jordan
he
gave
said in the
Gary
70s,
an elbow right there.
they would run zones, which were technically illegal. But when looking at the refs, they rarely, if ever, called it for them when they were playing at home.
I mean, you run a good
Even
zone, it's
looking
going
at
to
the
look like a
New York
man.
Times in 1987, they said Jordan faced double teams, triple teams.
If you run a good man, it's going to look like a zone.
En route to averaging
When my
37
coaches told me that.
points. Even looking at the 90s and 96, Phil Jackson once again says zone defense, it was allowed and it was a favorite of the Seattle Supersonics. And at the bottom of that quote, he says Seattle was going to double team him all the time. Even looking at Jordan's own Bulls team, their defensive strategy was disguising zones, applying pressure, and scheming around illegal defensive rules. And looking back at Phil Jackson, when he was coaching the Lakers, he accused the Spurs of running a zone and a 1-2-2. But like time and time before, the refs rarely, if ever, called it out.
They probably ran it so well that it looked like a man,
There
I'm
are
telling you.
tons and tons of articles.
I mean, you can start to notice it,
that prove
of
zone
course, but
defense was allowed
when the mistakes
in
are
the
made
90s,
and things like
the
that. But
80s,
if they're playing a
the
great zone, it's going to look like a
70s.
man, especially a
And looking at
1-2-2.
modern day zone defenses, when they play zone, I would rarely consider it an actual zone. As in today's NBA, you have the 3-second rule where you can't camp and clog the paint. Something back in the day you didn't have when it came to centers as well as power forwards. Now, even with all that damning evidence, let's say still you aren't convinced, and you think Jordan versus zone defenses would have been locked down and an ineffective player. If that's the case, why was Jordan the Wizards so effective before his knee injury? In a 46-game sample size, nearly half the season, he was a dominant player at age 39, averaging 25 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 1.5 steals on 42% shooting. At the time of those stats, there were only 2 other players averaging 25, 5, and 5, that being Kobe as well as Tracy McGrady. And when it came to scoring, he was easily in the top 10 and pushing top 5. And going one step deeper, looking at those 46 games, 17 of them were versus top 10 defenses, and in that stretch, he had 5 40-point games, which ranked 4th in the NBA behind T-Mac, Shaq, as well as Allen Iverson. And most impressive, in back-to-back games, he had 51 versus the Hornets and 46 versus the Nets. If zone defense is that deadly, and having no illegal defense changes the game so much, why was Jordan at 39 so effective and so dominant pre-injury? Now, looking back at Jason Williams, he had one more quote that was absolutely insane. Saying back in the day, it was really easier to score, and having someone like Gary Payton defending you wasn't really that challenging. As a new guy in the paint, you had
Nah,
no
he's
Giannis
disrespecting all the greats right now. What's wrong with this dude? He broke or something. He needs some bread. What's wrong with
or
dude?
Brook Lopez waiting for you.
Like, because you at this point you doing this for the bread or something? Like, there's no reason you should be disrespecting NBA players that came, NBA legends, you know, that came before you for some clout. So it gotta be for the bread. You gotta be. Like, what's going on?
This quote right here, unlike zone defense, is not hard to debunk. As looking back at the 90s, that era was stacked rim protectors as well as great centers, like Akeem, Shaq, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Charles Oakley,
Whole
Dennis
bunch of
Rodman,
bodies.
and so on and so on.
Ah,
The 1990s decade was the deepest when it came to centers as well as rim protectors. And once again, a very important rule, in the 90s, there was no 3 seconds. And if you look at the Bad Boy Pistons, one of the best defensive teams ever, versus Michael Jordan, it was 1v5, and all their focus was on Jordan and stopping him. Versus that great physical defensive team, who crossed the line multiple times, Michael Jordan averaged 31.2 points on 48% shooting. He had 11 games of 40-plus points, including 59 as well as 61.
Dennis.
And if you actually watch the game, when Jordan gets past Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, even Isaiah Thomas, the bigs at the rim are waiting for him, and they're going to punish him if he drives the ball. That in today's NBA, for the most part, is not allowed. Yes, there are great defensive teams, even players, but when it comes to the Pistons, that style of defense has long been outlawed. And still looking at 2022, when it comes to paint scoring, Russell Westbrook at his advanced age is still one of the best finishers and paint scorers. Last year, being 8th in paint scoring on 58.2% shooting. And even looking at John Morant, who's more sleight of frame, he was 10th on nearly 70% shooting. If John Morant and Russell Westbrook can dominate in the paint in 2022, why would Michael Jordan even bat an eye? And looking at our last Jason Williams quote, he says Jordan plays NBA, he'd be an all-star, but he wouldn't be nearly as good. Now, looking at 2022, evaluating the landscape, is there any player
he'll be out here wild? Bro. Jordan never played against Jason Williams.
Offensive skills, his mid-range game, his post.
Let me know, y'all. Jordan probably worked his dumbass.
Is there any player
that's
who
probably why
checks
he's mad.
all those boxes? Prime Michael Jordan from 88 to 93 was averaging 35, 7, and 7 with 2 steals.
That's actually ridiculous.
And 83 splits. He was playing both ends of the floor, winning MVPs, winning championships, and doing it at the highest possible level. Looking at the top tier of NBA talent, people like Giannis, Jokic, Steph Curry, LeBron James, KD, Embiid, Luka Doncic, all those guys in one way or another are flawed basketball players when it comes to offense or even defense. And as two-way players, only Giannis can rival Jordan in that category. If you put Jordan in today's NBA as absolute apex, he's the NBA's leading scorer, first team all defense, and every year he's healthy, he's making the playoffs and making some type of deep and meaningful run. The bottom line for this video being, any all-time great player, top 15, top 25, they'd be great for the most part in any era. That goes for Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe, Magic, Bird, all those guys. Now with that point being made, that is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.
And that's the end of this for y'all. If y'all enjoyed, you know what to do. Click on the last reaction. Links in the description, man. Turn on post notifications. Roll the 5 bands, and I'm out of here, man.